Hello. Is this better? Is this worse? I don't know. The lighting is kind of bad because this is the first chance I've had to record this today. It's been a busy week, but I really wanted to get this to you. Honestly, I had really intended for this video to come out before the second Crescent City book came out, not 2 weeks after the second Crescent City book came out. But a couple things happened. One, Crescent City took me longer to read than I thought it was going to. That book is chunky, for one. Also, it's like very heavy. I was very much anticipating like ACOTAR levels of like weightiness, and it's definitely an adult book in that I think people were disappointed that it's not like spicier, and it's probably like on par with, I don't know, A Court of Thorns and Roses as far as like the original series, not Nesta's book, which was like, you know, different. But the themes, it thematically feels much more adult than her other works did. It deals a lot with like grief and depression, and it was just like significantly heavier than I was anticipating. Also, it turns out making one of these PowerPoints takes a while. So we're going to be going through this PowerPoint with everything that you need to know. Maybe you're watching this before you read the second book. I haven't read the second book yet, so there are no spoilers about the second book. There are definitely spoilers for the first book, obviously. Maybe you don't want to read this book, but you want to seem like you've read this book. I think this would also be helpful for you if that's the case. I don't know what your purpose is, but I'm happy you're here. So let's jump into it. A guide to everything that happened in Crescent City 1, a house of earth and blood. So first of all, let's talk about Crescent City. So we get this map at the beginning. It's called Crescent City because it's shaped like a crescent moon. It's also called Lunathian. I think there's a connection to the goddess Luna. I think she's like the patron of the city, but like not 100% sure on that. Also, I should warn you that I don't entirely know what's going on in this book. When I read fantasy books, especially books like this, I'm mostly here for vibes. And I paid like a slightly more attention to this book, especially when I was going back and doing notes, but vibes are the priority, not details. So anyway, it's shaped like a crescent moon. It's divided into 8 sections, and I actually think the 8 sections are a good introduction into kind of what is happening as far as like the different groups that are involved in Crescent City. So first up, we got Moonwood, and Moonwood is where the wolf shifters live. The Prime is the guy that is in charge of the wolf shifters, but he's kind of getting old, he's blind, you know. So his daughter Sabine has kind of taken over a lot of responsibilities. Sabine is very important. We will see her lots more in this PowerPoint. But they're the wolf shifters. They have magic powers, just like everyone else. I think their magic powers mostly that they can turn into wolves. They're also very strong, and they're like essentially immortal. They live for like a very, very long time. Then we have 5 Roses, and this is where the Fae live. And the Autumn King is the boss man here. Again, he's very important. We'll see him again. And then his son, Rune, is next in line. So he's the prince of this region. The Fae have like magic power. What can they do? IDK. It's unclear at this point. But they have magic powers. I think they're kind of the more magical of the creatures. Again, they can also live till they're really old. Next, we have the business district. This is where we kind of start to see a little bit more of the broader politics. So Micah is in charge of this area of the city, but he's also the Archangel of Valbara. And to me, my understanding of it is that Crescent City, Lunathian, is the city, Valbara is like the state, and then Pangera is like the country. So he's like the governor of Valbara. So he's the HBIC. He is in charge of everyone. What can angels do? They can fly because they have wings. They also live a really long time. They have magic. Probably. What kind of magic? I don't know. Stop asking so many questions. In the middle of the city, we've got the Old Square. The Oracle's in charge. I don't really know what the Oracle is. Like, is she her own species? IDK. She doesn't have a name. She's in charge. This seems kind of like the religious center of the city. This is where Luna's temple is. This is also where our girls' favorite bars are. It's fun and fresh. The Oracle shows up occasionally, but she's not like a character. She's more of like a plot device at this point. The meat market. We have the Viper Queen. She's in charge here. One thing that I am very curious about is whether there's like a whole species of like snake people, or if the Viper Queen is just special. Maybe they told us, but I don't remember. Anyway, the meat market, which is where the Viper Queen is in charge of, is like where the crimes happen. So they have a special part of Lunathian that's just dedicated to criminal activity. And, you know, I guess you can do that. And she's in charge. We've got the River Istros. The River Istros kind of acts as a border for the city. We'll talk about the Bone Quarter later. But it is run by the River Queen. We don't really see her in this book. I imagine she'll become important in later books because I talk about her a lot. But this is where the Mer people hang out. And they also have something called the Blue Court, which sounds fun. I hope we get to visit it in later books. I think we probably do. I think the next one has water in the title. So maybe we get to visit it. But the Blue Court is this underwater court that is like in a bubble, and they can like take people down there because it's like a bubble, so it's filled with air, but then they're stuck down there. So that's kind of fun and fresh for the mermaids. Okay, then we've got the Bone Quarter. So the Bone Quarter is run by the Under King. Who is the Under King? What is the Under King? I don't know. Again, questions sometimes don't have answers. Sometimes we should just keep being curious. You know, keep asking questions. But this is where the dead people live. Is dead people living a misnomer? Maybe. Essentially what happens is when you die, they take your body and they put it on a little boat and they send it across the river. And if your boat makes it all the way to the other side, you get to hang out in the Bone Quarter and vibe with the other dead people. If your boat tips over, then you just fall in the river and it's bad news. And your boat will tip over if you've been like rotten. If you've been a bad person and you haven't like earned the afterlife. And then our last region is Asphodel Meadows. This is where the humans live. Humans in this book, bottom of the barrel. They're really the low man on the totem pole. They don't even get a vote in like the council. All those other city heads like have a vote when they like meet to do stuff, even though Mike is in charge. Humans, none of that. They're like lowest of the low. They weren't always the lowest of the low, but some rebellion happened at some point, and now we don't like them. And by we, I mean them. Anyway, there's also a bunch of gates all over the city. These gates are super important to the plot of this book, but like, what do they do and why are they there? And we don't really know. They're communication devices from the olden days. They also like act as portals later. I don't understand. So I already talked a little bit about the politics of Pangea, but essentially we have these regions that are ruled by archangels that I think of as states, and then we have like the bigger country of Pangea, and it might be like the only country in the entire world, but we do have a planet. But the country is run by these 6 Asteri, and we don't know much about the Asteri except they can talk to each other in their minds, and they speak like as one voice, and they're really creepy. And they, even though there's like all these counselors and there's governors, like what the Asteri says goes. Like, really, we have a, like, dictatorship where the Asteri are at the top, and we have, like, the illusion of stuff happening below, and, like, maybe on the smaller stuff they let that sort of happen, but the Asteri are, like, there's no checks and balances systems, you know? Like you learned back in 5th grade government. We don't got that. And then, like I said, the planet is called Midgard. So, I don't know if Pangea is the only country in Midgard, or if there's other countries. It seems like it might just be Pangea. Anyway, is this the planet where the worm Feyre fights Nakatar is from? I am going to definitively say yes. They are spelled different, so that might make you think that they're not the same, but I've decided, I consulted myself and my heart, and I decided that the worm is from Midgard, the planet. Because I think a lot of people are talking about how there is like potential for a crossover between all 3 of Sarah J. Maas's worlds, and I think this is another hint that that's true. I'm reading this Sarah J. Maas book like it's a Taylor Swift Instagram post. Anyway, so we have kind of this history of rebellions. We have this first rebellion that we don't learn much about in this book, but I think is going to become really important. But it's kind of where this system of government originated. Humans seemed like they were equal to everyone else. And at the end of this rebellion is when the Asteri kind of took over. We don't know a lot about it, like I said, but I think it's going to be really important. And then about 500 years ago, we had an angel rebellion where a bunch of angels led a rebellion against kind of this hierarchy. The rebellion was put down, and like all of the angels and other creatures that were participating in this rebellion are now enslaved. So that's a bummer for them. Right now what they're dealing with is a human rebellion, because the humans don't like not having a vote in anything and just being like super low man on the totem pole. It's mainly happening in northern Pangea, which is not where Lunathian is, but there is like a sect run by Philip Briggs in Lunathian, and they are up to mischief and mayhem. Some big terms to know. Vanir is anyone who is not human. So like the Fae, the wolf shifters, the angels, I think all of them are technically Vanir. It's just like the broader term. And then the drop. So the drop is something that the Vanir do, and it's a process where you become immortal. So in your 20s, you can undergo the drop. And essentially what happens is you have to go through this ordeal. This is my understanding. This ordeal. So this like trial of some sort. And then you like drop into your power and you descend all the way to the bottom of your power. And then using an anchor, usually a friend, sometimes a family member, you have to like return to your body, and you have to do it so fast, otherwise your body will stop working. And then after you do that, you could like fully come into your power, and you also become immortal-ish, you know? So those are really important. Now we're going to meet our girlie. This is Miss Bryce Quinlan. She is the star of the show. She is our heroine. She's in her early 20s. She's a recent college graduate. She is half Fae, half human. But she has gotten like citizenship to the Fae sect of things. Like I said, things are very hierarchical. So if she were a human, she'd be bottom of the totem pole. But governmentally, she's like considered part of the Fae group. She wanted to be a dancer, but since she's half human, she's like not graceful enough to be a dancer. So instead she works in an antique store for this lady named Jezebel. And Jezebel is this mean witch lady, and she owns Griffin Antiquities. That's the store that they work at. She's a witch, but she joined the House of Flame and Shadow. So like I said, Bryce is in like the fairy household instead of the human household. Jezebel should be in like the household of witches, but instead she's in the House of Flame and Shadow, which is where like the Underking, the guy who's in charge of the dead, and like the vampires are. So it's kind of like a weird choice. We don't really know what happened, but Jezebel is going to become important. We can tell this based on the epilogue. And so probably her decisions will be illuminated a little bit more. She's really mean, and she's notorious for turning people into animals. So rude. She's also super wealthy from her store, and she has like a very large secret library under her store, which is top secret, and Bryce is not supposed to let anyone know about it. We'll talk more about the library later. Bryce has like two buddies that are not people buddies. We've got Leilaba, who's a fire sprite. And essentially what a fire sprite is this like tiny, like Tinkerbell sized girly, but she's made out of flames. And Leilaba loves reality television, but she is a slave because during the Angel Rebellion, the fire sprites did ally with the angels that rebelled. And so now they're enslaved, and Leilaba is owned by Jezebel and is in charge of like guarding the library. And then Syrinx was Jezebel's, but Bryce bought Syrinx's freedom. And this is how I picture Syrinx. This is not any of the fan art of Syrinx, but I believe Syrinx looks like a Pomeranian. That also doesn't match the book descriptions, but sometimes you have to listen to your heart. Syrinx is essentially Bryce's dog, but she's also magic because she's actually a chimera. And then we meet Danica. Danica Fendir is Bryce's BFF. They graduated college at the same time. They underwent kind of like a traumatic experience together in college. They just recently got matching back tattoos that say, "Through love, all is possible," or something to that effect. She's a wolf shifter, and she's actually Sabine's daughter. If you recall, we talked about Sabine earlier. And she's the boss of the Pack of Devils, and she also has a job part-time. She works at Redner Industries, which is like this big technological thing. It's essentially like Google, but in Crescent City. So I'm going to talk briefly about what I thought happened in this book. I thought this book was about Bryce and Danica being BFFs and solving crimes together. I've heard that it's like Zootopia, but with magical creatures. That's what I heard it described as. And so I thought this is about Bryce and Danica solving crimes as besties. I've never seen Zootopia, so maybe this was partially on me, mostly on me. And then chapter 5 happens. So I'm going to kind of walk you through the events of chapter 5 and how this drastically changes the course of the novel and completely shifts what I thought this book was about. So in chapter 5, Danica, like I said, is a wolf shifter. She's the head of the wolf pack called the Pack of Devils, and they're having pack night at the house. So Bryce and Danica live together, so they're at the house having pack night. We've also got Connor. Connor's had a crush on Bryce for like ever, but Bryce hasn't been into it. Bryce is going out on a date with Reed. So she leaves and goes to a super fancy restaurant. Reed is essentially the finance bro, or whatever version of a finance bro we would have in Crescent City. He also works for Redner Industries. And yeah, he's kind of a douche. He is like very late to the dinner, and Bryce decides she's going to break up with him, and she is going to text Connor and hang out with Connor and like finally give Connor a chance. She's finally going to date Connor. So bye Reed, hello Connor. So she texts Connor, but it's again pack night. So he's hanging out with the pack back at their apartment, and Bryce is not ready to go home yet. So she calls up her friends Fury and Juniper. Fury is, I don't know. Everyone is scared of her. She seems to be very powerful and important. I have literally no idea who she is or what she's doing. I mean, like, I know who she is. She's this girly. But, like, is she fae? Is she a witch? I don't know. Is this a fault of me not reading closely enough? Quite possibly. I'm confused by Fury. Juniper is a dancer, and she's also a fawn, which is fun. A new species of animal that we haven't talked about yet. And these three plus Danica are kind of like the core four friends. And so she's out having a good time. Bryce is very, very high, very, very drunk, like having a wild time. And then she returns to her apartment. She expects to find the whole pack and Danica there. She returns home and the pack is dead. And when I mean dead, I mean like murdered to powder on the ground. Connor is also included in that. He is dead and gone. Oh, and surprising to me, Danica is also dead. In like literal mush on the ground. So Bryce finds a demon in their apartment and she starts chasing after it, and she catches it in an alley where it's munching on a mystery angel. We later learn this is Micah. So she rescues this angel. She's like high as a kite, remember. She's like losing her mind. She's freaking out because her best friend Danica was just murdered. And who finds her but our boy, the king himself, Hunt Athalar. Hunt Athalar is an angel. He is like 500 and something, as all leading men in the Sarah J. Maas world are. And he led one of the legions during that rebellion, the angel rebellion we talked about. So now he is a slave. His nickname is like the Umbra Mortis. Essentially, he's a paid assassin for Micah. He has a tattoo on his forehead, that like thorn thing, which says that he's a slave. He also has one on his wrist. And then he has marks all over his body or like tattoos, because for Sandriel, again, we'll talk about later, gave him a mark for every person who he was responsible for killing. So anyone who was in opposition to his legion who died. So there's like 2,000 something. He also has lightning power. What is lightning power? Again, stop asking so many questions. Anyway, he had this really nice girlfriend whose name I can't remember. I was supposed to write it down and I didn't. He has this really nice girlfriend whose name is something. Unfortunately, she dies in the rebellion. She was the one who convinced him to join the rebellion. Then she gets killed in the rebellion. So she's not around anymore. But he's still kind of like sad in his heart because, you know, he loved her and now she's gone. So we pause there. Bryce, freaking out, high on drugs, talking to Hunt. She's getting interviewed, blah, 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 blah. We flash forward 2 years later. Bryce Aroni is still working at Jezebel's antiquity store. She's very depressed after Danica died and, you know, is just like trying her best. One day, Hunt shows up at the store and is like, hi, Micah's going to be here any minute. And she's like, Micah can't just show up. And Isaiah, Hunt's friend, is like, well, he's coming. And so Bryce is like, okay, why are you here? And Micah's like, hi, I was actually looking for you. I have a job for you. And she's like, I already have a job. And he said, too bad. I need to know who killed Danica. So initially, the idea was that Danica was killed by Philip Briggs, the head of the Human Rebellion. She had recently put him in jail, and then he had gotten out from jail. And so everyone was like, clearly, Danica would have been his target. But Philip Briggs is still in jail, and someone else was murdered in that same way that Danica was murdered, by that creepy demon thing. And it turns out this guy was like a creeper vampire that was hanging out with Bryce the night before. And so Bryce is kind of under suspicion for these murders, but also she's the only one who's ever been able to escape this demon unscathed. Remember, she rescued that angel, who is Micah. And Hunt is going to be assigned to help her. So now we actually know what the book is about. It is not about Bryce and Danica solving crimes. It's about Bryce solving the murder of Danica. Because remember, she was murdered. Let's talk about Rune real quick. So Rune is Bryce's half-brother. We mentioned him at the very beginning because he's also the prince, the son of the Autumn King. He is Bryce's half-brother, so they have the same dad. They're both children of the Autumn King. Bryce and him had a falling out a couple years back. But like, he's still looking out for her. He's what's called Starborn. And Starborn is, he has like magic star powers, just like Hunt has magic lightning powers. And he also gets a cool sword. So That's fun. When we meet him 2 years later, he's talking to the Autumn King, and the Autumn King gives him a couple things that are going to happen. He says, hey, boy, you need to get married to the new Witch Queen because we're going to forge some alliances because things are kind of politically looking a little tense and we need some alliances. And Rune's like, I don't really want to marry the Witch Queen. And his dad is like, I kind of don't care. And he's like, also, I need you to find this missing horn. And Rune is like, the missing horn. And this horn is very important. And this horn has been missing for a little over 2 years. It went missing right before Danica died. It was stolen from Luna's temple right before Danica died. It originally belonged to the first Starborn Prince, Peleus, which is one of the reasons that the Autumn King wants Rune to look for it, because like calls to like, as Sarah J. Maas loves to say. It's a sacred Fae artifact that's supposed to be able to like open gates. But it's broken. And it can only be repaired by light that is not light and magic that is not magic. And so everyone was like, well, that's not a thing. But we have read a book before, so we know clearly they're going to find something that is light that is not light and magic that is not magic, and they're going to fix it. But right now the horn is missing. Rune's supposed to look for it. So they've both been given, so we've got kind of two tasks going on, right? Rune has been assigned to find this horn. Bryce has been assigned to find the murder of Danica. Turns out these tasks are one and the same. We won't find that out for a few more pages, but trust me, they are. Let's introduce these baddies. We've got Sandriel and Pollux. You might notice Sandriel looks a lot like Hunt's ex-girlfriend. I believe they were sisters. We're just told over and over again that they look very similar. So Sandriel is this girl looking a sword. She is another archangel from a different region. She's the worst. She owned Hunt originally, and then somehow Micah wound up with him. And then Pollux is her right hand. He's called the Hammer. He's annoying. Like I said, Danica and the horn are connected. We find this out pretty quickly, that the demon is kind of attracted to the power of the horn. Also, Danica was right by the temple when the horn went missing. Blah, 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 blah. We don't need to know why we know that. We just need to know that. Danica was definitely up to something before her death. She was at that temple the night the horn was stolen, and she's just exhibiting, as we're finding out, as they're kind of looking into those hours and days before her death, she's exhibiting a lot of like really suspicious behavior. So we're a little concerned about what Danica was up to. Meanwhile, these two are investigating. They're trying to figure out who the heck would have murdered Danica, since Philip brings it off the table. So we start going through suspects. We're like, is it the Viper Queen? Again, the lady who's in charge of crime. Because she would have access to the stuff you need to summon a demon. It wasn't the Viper Queen. And then they accuse her own mother. They're like, Sabine, did you kill your daughter? And she's like, no, that's rude for asking. And then she like tries to murder Bryce. Hunt stops her. There's drama there. Anyway, it wasn't Sabine. But she's also acting sus. But it turns out she was acting sus to cover up for Danica because she thinks Danica stole the horn. And then Bryce is like, Daddy Autumn King, did you kill Danica? And he's like, no, I didn't do it either. So they're like really running through these lists of suspects. No one is panning out. While this is happening, obviously, they're falling in love. We've also got Rune has his own cute little love story. So Rune is falling in love with this med witch named Hypaxia. He doesn't know that the med witch is Queen Hypaxia. Remember how I was like, Daddy Autumn King was like, you need to marry one of the witches. We need to form an alliance. And Rune was like, I'm not going to marry the Queen of the Witches. Turns out he meets this med witch. He doesn't ask her name because apparently he has no social skills. And it is Queen Hypaxia. They like work together on some stuff we'll talk about later. But she seems really cool. I hope she hangs out and I hope they fall in love. I hope Sarah J. Maas does not murder her. That would make me sad. Next we meet Therian. Therian is a merman. He works for the River Queen. He's supposedly just here for a good time. But he has all the tea on what's happening on the river. And he is like, Danica maybe was up to more than you thought. And then he's like, goodbye. So next we meet Adius. Bryce and Hunt have kind of come up on a wall. And Bryce is like, I will call it my good friend Adius. Adius is a demon. But he's one of the like cool, smart demons. Not one of the like, just like angry demons. And he's called the Prince of the Chasm. And he's from the 5th level of Hell. Why does Sarah J. Maas spell Hell with one L? That is a mystery I will never know. When Bryce, let's talk about Bryce's visit to the Oracle. So when at 13, all Fae go visit the Oracle kind of tells them a little about their future, like what jobs they might do, that sort of stuff. It's kind of vague, kind of just like a fun, fresh, bat mitzvah sort of trip. And Bryce's mom makes her go. And this is kind of the first time she's meeting the Autumn King, her biological dad. She also meets Rune. And this is where her biological dad, the fairy guy, gives her the citizenship to be a fae. But when Bryce goes in to meet the Oracle, she blinds the Oracle. And the Oracle is blind for like a week. And it really embarrasses her biological dad, and he's very unhappy. But anyway, this is when he meets Adius. Adius can turn into a little kitty, and this cat comes up to Bryce and is like, what blinds an Oracle? And they have a little chat. And then during this meeting, now in present day, that he's having with Hunt and Bryce, he says, the Oracle did not see, but I did see. Adius is going to be very important in later books. I can sense it in my bones. He is also the first and only being to kill an Asteri, and he killed Sirius, called the Star Eater, which did have me flashing back to Harry Potter. The saddest death in Harry Potter is Sirius Black. Rest in peace. He also gives us the fun fact that Hell is a planet. So are Bryce and Hunt going to visit Hell in a later book? 100% they will. That's my prediction. Okay, Rune's visit to the Oracle goes a little differently than Bryce's. Essentially, at his visit to the Oracle's like, you will be the end of your bloodline, Prince. And so he's like very stressed about this at all times. This is kind of one of the reasons he doesn't want to date anyone. He also is like very hesitant to have Bryce's status as like a princess acknowledged, because then like, what does that mean for her? He's just very concerned. He's very stressed. This has really stressed him out. Okay, now we come upon something that's very important to the rest of the story. It's this drug called synth. And a synth is being developed by Redner Industries, where, again, Danica was working, and it's essentially synthetic magic. That's what synth is short for. And it's this, like, amplification of magic that makes you super powerful, but it also has this really bad side effect of essentially making you, like, Hulk out to the point where you, like, murder everyone around you and then kill yourself. Which is, like, bad news. And that med witch we talked about, Queen Hypaxia, is working on making an antidote, but she needs Crystallos venom in order to make it. Why are synth and Crystallos venom connected? I don't remember, but somehow they are. So synth plays a pretty big role. It's this essentially really, really powerful drug that makes you like super strong, super fast, super cool. Again, we learn more about Danica being up to something before her death. There are rumors from Therian in particular that Danica may have been selling synth. She was around. Therian saw her involved in some sort of like synth drug deal. Bryce wants to believe that she was there to stop it, but she never mentioned it to Bryce, and so that feels really weird. Danica was also working at Redner at the time that they were developing the synth, so she's like definitely 100% connected to synth in some way. We just don't know how. Let's take a quick hiatus to talk about Jezebel's new pet. So this is the Knock. The Knock is this scary underwater alligator man thing. It eats people, anything. It just like eats things. It is like pure evil. Its only weakness is air. So underwater, super speedy, fast. But if it is exposed to air at all, it like will die. And Leilaba really hates this thing. Because remember, she like lives in the library. She's in charge of guarding the books, and the Nox tank is down there. It's like this huge tank that dominates the whole wall, and he's always like creeping on her. And she's also really scared of it because if she goes in the water, she's immediately dead because she's a flame. So bad news. We'll talk more about him later, obviously. And so then Bryce and Hunt make some poor choices. So it's Danica's birthday, and Bryce is having a really hard time because her best friend is dead, and she's sad about it. And so, kind of to honor Danica, she goes down to the river and is gonna have some chocolate croissants. Unfortunately, one of the other wolf shifters, because the wolf shifters kind of blame Bryce for Danica's death. One of the wolf shifters has left like a really mean message in the chocolate croissants. Hunt sees this and he gets really mad, and he like goes and tries to fight the wolf shifters, but he gets caught. And they're like, you can't do this. Remember how you're a slave? And they chop his wings off. And they're like, stop. No more. Anyway. So now Bryce takes him home and is like trying to nurse him back to health. They have like a romantic encounter. Things are really heating up between them. And then chapter 65 happens. So Bryce tucks little Hunteroni. She kisses him on the head, tucks him into bed. Remember, doesn't have wings anymore, so he's having like a really hard time. They will grow back because angels can grow back like literally anything, but it's like a very painful process. So she tucks him into bed and she scurries out of her apartment and she meets Therian by the river because there were rumors that a synth deal was going down, and they see a boat and they're like, Synth is clearly on that boat. And so Bryce sneaks onto the boat. And who's there but Hunt? Remember how she tucked him in? He got out of bed. And now he's here on the boat. And she's like, what the heck? And then Micah's like, gotcha, this was all a trap. And Hunt's like, shoot, Bryce didn't have anything to do with this. And Hunt is like, being like, ugh. And Bryce is like, Hunt, why are you here? And then Fury shows up. And she's like, hi, stop. And Micah's like, guess what, Bryce? You know Synth? Danica was mad addicted to Synth. We didn't want to tell you, but she was. She was addicted to Synth, and she was the one who murdered the wolf pack. She got too high on Synth and murdered everyone and then killed herself. And Bryce is like, pretty mad about this. She's pretty mad at Hunt because Hunt would have known this. Also, what was Hunt doing trying to buy Synth knowing how bad it was? She's also mad at Fury because Fury hasn't talked to her since Danica died. She's also pretty mad at Danica because Danica was maybe addicted to drugs. Girlie's having a really bad time. Anyway, this winds up, Hunt gets put in jail, down in the basements, in the dungeons. He's in jail because, like, you can't go buying drugs when you're working for the government. And then Sandriel is like, Micah traded you to me, so now you live with me. Remember, Hunt hates Sandriel. Very, like, tense vibes, because I think he was dating her sister, maybe, when things went south. Again, I don't know. Stop asking me so many questions. So that's happening. He's having a bad time. He thinks things are going to go poorly. Bryce is like really thinking it over. She's mulling it over. She had a conversation with Fury about it. She's decided that she really is mad at Hunt, but she forgives him, and she wants to make sure that he doesn't get like sold to Sandriel, because she knows how terrible that would be. So she goes to Sandriel and she's like, I will pay you hecka money. She essentially got a bunch of money from Jezebel, and she's like, I will pay you hecka money and this protection stone if you will trade Hunt back to me. Sandriel is like, absolutely not. Will not do that. But she doesn't melt her necklace, which is like 100% against the rules. And then Bryce is like, fine, I'll trade you. You take me, and Hunt Athalar goes free. Hunt is freaking out. Hunt is like, absolutely not. He knows how bad Sandriel and Pollux are, and he doesn't want Bryce exposed to that. Luckily, Rune shows up, and Rune is like, finally claims Bryce as his sister, and he's like, she's the Fae princess. She's my sister. As a Fae male, she actually belongs to me. She can't trade herself. And there's that. And Hunt is like, thanks, boy. And Bryce is really, really mad. And then Bryce goes down to the river. She's really mad at everyone. And a Crystallis demon attacks her. Don't worry, Rune and the boys show up and they protect her. And it's fine. They get rid of the Crystallis demon. Then, we've been kind of preparing for the summit the whole book. I know I haven't mentioned it yet, but we have been. The summit is where everyone, I think once a year, gets together and like chitty chats about what the plans are for the next year. You know, like a government meeting. And so everyone is at the summit. We've got Hunt is there with Sandriel and Pollux. We've got Jezebel's there. We've got Sabian is there. We've got Sabine and her dad, the Prime. We've got the Viper Queen. We've got Queen Hypaxia. This is actually when we find out she's Queen Hypaxia. We've got Therian. Rune is there. Fury there. The Autumn King's there. Literally everyone is there except Bryce. The city is like empty. Bryce is back at the library. Let's talk about the library. The library is top secret because it contains a lot of banned books, but also very magical books, which is why kind of Leilaba is in charge there. She actually keeps the books in line because they try to escape all the time. At some point earlier in the novel, Rune goes, tell me you don't believe that conspiracy crap about an ancient library in the heart of a pre-existing human civilization. And I do believe that this is what we're dealing with. And it's also referenced as like the Lost Library of Parthos. So this is a library with a lot of like human wisdom that went missing during that like first initial rebellion that set up the current governmental system. And so it is banned, and Jezebel's in charge of maintaining it. So Bryce is here with Leilaba and Syrinx, and they are hanging out, and they're trying to research ways to get Hunt free from his deal with Sandriel, but like it's not looking good. When who shows up but our friend Micah, the Archangel. Why is Micah not at the summit? What is he up to? And so Micah's like, hey, Bryce. And Bryce is like, literally no one's here. There's a summit. Do you want me to call someone? She's like, I'm immediately very concerned. And he's like, no, I'm actually looking for you. And she, like, Bryce quickly, like, calls up Jezebel. I think actually she texts her. And she's like, I need you to pull up the security feeds in the summit because I want everyone to see what's going on. Also, like, I need help. Like, things are going to get bad very quickly. And so she texts Jezebel. So now the security screens are pulled up at the summit, so all of these people that we just talked about are watching everything we're just gonna see in a second unfold. And so again, we have Micah and Bryce, and Micah is like, yeah, I was looking for you because you are the horn. Remember that tattoo I mentioned? Danica stole the horn from Luna's temple, ground it into powder, and had it tattooed into Bryce's back. So Bryce's back tattoo is the horn. Okay, we're following? And Mike is like, so I actually want the horn because I want to open up all the gateways to hell, which is what the horn does. I don't remember what his goals are for that. That sounds like a bad idea no matter who you are, but he's all about it. I think he probably wants to be in charge. And Bryce is like, no thank you, that sounds unfun for me, but have a great day. And Mike is like, can I tell you something really quick? You know how Danica and the Wolfpack are dead? I actually killed them. And he confesses this, and Bryce is kind of like trying to get more of a confession out of him because she knows that the screens are up in the summit, so anything he admits to, everyone will see. And then he gives her synth because in order to fix the broken horn, you need the synthetic magic because it is magic that is not magic. Where is the light that is not light, you might be asking? Don't worry, we'll get there. And Bryce is trying to run away, and she's like, no, I'm not going to help you. And she like runs away. She grabs this book, and it like force fields him back. But then he just picks up, the knock shows up. Oh yeah, the knock is here. And he picks up Syrinx and he chucks him in the Nox cage because he knows that Bryce is not going to just let Syrinx die. And so Bryce does just jump in the Nox's cage, and she rescues the Syrinx and pulls him out of the cage. But like, we still have the Micah problem. And so we get our true hero of the story. Not the hero we deserve, but the hero we got anyway. This is Lilaba, if you recall. Lilaba is just like so sweet and charming, and Lilaba's like, I'm gonna buy you time. They like lock Mike in a bathroom for a second, but it's not gonna hold him because Bryce is trying to carry Syrinx. She's hurt. She like got a little scratched up in the Nox cage or tank, and Lilaba is like, I'm gonna buy you some time. And Bryce is like, no, I already bought your freedom. Like, you're free now, Lilaba. And Lilaba's like, I know, I peeked in your drawer, and like, this is what I want to do for my freedom. And then she says like, I am Lilaba, and she talks about like her grandmother, who she's like mentioned this whole time, and like no one really believes her. And she says, and I am not afraid. And it reminded me of Throne of Glass because Aelin would always say like, I am Aileen Ashifort. I don't know how to say any of the names, okay? And I am not afraid because Sam taught her how to do that. And anytime Sam Cortland is mentioned or like alluded to, I get a little emotional. Anyway, Lilaba's like, I'm gonna sacrifice myself, and so she does. They break open the Nox tank. All the water comes flooding out. Bryce is able to run up the stairs. Lilaba dies. What a queen. And Micah's deterred just for a few seconds, so Bryce can run all the way up the stairs. So Bryce runs up the stairs, and we have seen this gun very early in the novel. It's this gun that Jezebel keeps in her office in 3 pieces. It's called like the Godslayer, which is a great name for a gun. So Bryce is assembling it, but Bryce's dad, not her biological dad, but the dad she grew up with, whose name was Randall, was a sharpshooter, and Bryce is actually very good at shooting things. And so when Micah runs up the stairs, Bryce just like shoots him in the head. Then she takes a sword from behind Jezebel's desk and chops him into little pieces. And then, I think she might light him on fire. Eventually she vacuums up his corpse. Like, she is like, no. And we're like, yay, Bryce, you saved the day. And everyone's like really excited. And then we cut to outside. So turns out Mike was successful in opening all these gates. So all these gates that line the city are open, and demons are just flooding in. And not like the cute, fun ones like Adius, like mean demons that just want to eat people. And so all these demons are flooding in. And so Bryce is like, I'm going to fight the demons. I'm going to take care of this. I'm the one who opened the gates. I need to fix them. Meanwhile, at the summit, everyone is freaking out. Everyone is at the summit. They didn't leave anyone helpful in the city, essentially. So Bryce is trying to deal with this all by herself. She's trying to get people, as many people as possible, into bunkers, but also she needs to get to the gates and close them. Otherwise, more demons are just going to keep coming in. She needs to get to these gates and close them. Otherwise, more demons are going to keep coming in. And so she runs to the gate at the very center, the heart gate, and she turns on her magic power So what blinds an oracle? Starlight. Bryce only has one power, and it's that she can shine super, super bright. And it, like, blinds people. It, like, throws all the demons back, and it closes the gate, I believe. And she had done this earlier. We had been alluded to multiple times that she had this kind of traumatic incident with Danica, in which her and Danica were, like, almost captured by someone, and then Bryce saved the day. And so she used her magic star power to do it. Anyway, meanwhile, back at the summit, we've got Hunt. Hunteroni is hanging out, and they just watched Bryce murder an archangel. And Hunt felt inspired, so he took Sandra and he murdered her too. We're just murdering archangels left and right because it's allowed now. Anyway, he's like, we need to get to Hunt, or we need to get to Bryce and, like, rescue her because, like, things are going really far south, and, like, we need to help her out. And so he hops into Fury's helicopter, and they go back to Bryce. Bryce is in the city. We've got one gate closed, but we've got a bunch of other gates that need to be closed. She's also very tired, and there's still, like, a lot of demons afoot. Like, she got rid of some, but, like, there's still quite a few around. And also, the Asteria have heard about these demons getting out, and their solution is just to bomb the whole city. And if the whole city is bombed, demons are not a problem anymore. And so Hunt knows that's happening. Everyone in the summit knows that's happening. And so they're trying to get to Lunathian as fast as they can. And they're flying over the city, and the bomb is going to drop, and so Hunt jumps out of the plane and covers Bryce with his body, so when the bomb goes off, she's covered and safe and protected. Anyway, she wakes up from being attacked. Hunt is in really bad shape. The city is, like, in rubble, but, like, the gates are still open. And Bryce is like, okay, I, like, still need to handle this. Also, like, probably I need help with Hunt because he's dying. And so she goes up to the heart gate, and she puts her hand on it. And remember, like I said, they were, like, communication devices. And so she's trying to reach out to any of the other gates. She's like, I don't care who you are or where you are. I just need someone to put their hand on the gate because she needs to open that line of communication so she can close all the gates at once. And she's reaching out to, like, all 5 of the gates that are in the main city. She's, like, in the main quarters. And then finally one gate lights up, and it is the death gate. So it's the gate in the bone quarter. And who is on the other side but our girl, Danica. So Danica's soul is in the bone quarter, and it is like this little ember, this little remnant of Danica, and she is the one that opens that connection. And so Bryce's plan is essentially to make the drop. So when you make the drop, you release, like, a ton of power. And so Bryce thinks that when she makes the drop and releases all that power, it'll go through the gates and close them all. But she doesn't have an anchor. Like I said, you need an anchor to return to your body. And so she's making this drop. The people at the summit are watching her. She's dropping into her magic, like, farther than anyone thought was possible. She's dropping to the, like, she surpasses the Autumn King in level of magic. Because although she's half fae and she really doesn't have a lot of magic, the heart gate has a ton of magic. Because what people do is they go to the heart gate to make wishes. And so every time you make a wish, you add a little bit of magic to the heart gate. So Bryce is feeding on all that magic that is imbued in the heart gate. And, it's becoming her magic. And so then she is super magical, and she sucks up all that magic and lights everything up. She gets to the bottom, and she's like, okay, done. And remember that drop involves 2 parts. You have to drop, and then you have to ascend back up. And Danica's like, you gotta go back up. And she's like, no, I'm actually good. Turns out living without you was, like, very hard. Bryce has been dealing with, like, a lot of depression, and she had actually had, like, a suicide attempt that is referenced earlier in the novel. And Danica's like, you have to go back for your friends and your family, and you have to go back for Hunt. And so she does, and Danica helps her ascend up that huge distance that she dropped, and it uses up the last of, like, Danica's residual energy. And so Danica, like, is gone. Danica is no longer vibing in the bone quarter. Danica is gone, but Bryce is there. So as Danica fades away, we fade into Hunt, who's giving Bryce's body CPR, and she's able to return to it and live happily ever after. And then, you know, they go home, and they're, like, BFFs, and they're gonna be in love. And I feel like the novel actually wraps up very nicely. We do get a little tiny baby epilogue with Jezebel talking to Adius, and they're clearly up to some mischief and mayhem. And I think they'll probably be important in the next one. But that's, like, pretty much what happens in Crescent City. Book 1, House of Blood and Earth. So, there we go. Hope you enjoyed. Hope it was fun for you. It was fun for me to kind of recap everything that had happened in Crescent City. I actually plan on doing another one of these in a couple weeks for From Blood and Ash, which is recapping the first 3 books of the From Blood and Ash series, and maybe even a little bit of the spin-off book before the fourth book comes out, and that's like I love that series, even though Crown of Guild of Bones was a little bit garbage. So that'll be fun. And we also have other videos coming. So I'm like very tired. That was like a lot. Hope you enjoyed. If you have questions, again, don't ask me. I like gave you everything I have. If you have questions about something I said, sorry girly, you should subscribe, leave a comment with one thing that you were confused about in Crescent City, and we can just collect them in a pile. Don't spoil the book. Actually, you can. I need the engagement. So if you want, you can leave a spoiler down below about the second book. I will probably read it in the next couple months, so go ahead and spoil it ahead of time for me. I mean, don't, but like, if you want to, do it in the comments, okay? Because if you're gonna spoil me, I would at least like to get some engagement out of it. Again, if you have questions, I probably don't have answers, but you could ask me. I will talk to you at some point again. Have a great rest of your life. Goodbye.